Hi folks, I'm Dale Gilbert, and I've got to admit I got a little addiction when it comes to walleye fishing. And what we're actually talking about here today is jigging for walleyes, which also is my absolute favorite method presentation to catch walleyes. And what I really wanted to do was take a few minutes here and show you what I consider to be the #1 absolute best jig that's ever been manufactured and available for you for walleye fishing. And what I'm talking about here today is actually what's called the Fin-Tech Nuckleball jig. The Fin-Tech's been around for a few years, but it's got several design concepts that make it somewhat unique from most of the other jigs that I've ever seen or used. First of all, the Nuckleball is considered a stand-up head design. So you'll see here that when it sits down, because of the weight of the jig and where it's located in relation to the jig, it creates a stand-up head design which keeps the hook, shank, and barb, etc. up off the bottom, away from snags and rocks that would dull your hooks, and also allows the fish a lot easier for the fish to pick that jig up. And the second feature that I really like about that jig is actually the 100% exposed hook gap. You'll see the shank of the hook right here and all the way to the jig down below that, and then the barb up here, and this distance right here is called the hook gap, and it's 100% exposed, which makes it a lot easier when a fish picks that up to actually get the point of that hook into that fish and get a good hook set. The third feature that I really like is the line tie, which you'll notice here is on the very face of the jig, very leading edge. It's a huge hole. There's probably a little better than a 1/16 of an inch hole there, which for a jig is large, but it makes it really easy to get the line through that hole and be able to get your line tied on. You also don't have to bust the paint out of those jig eyes like I've had with a lot of other jigs I've used. It's a neat system, and also because of where it's located here on the leading edge of the jig, it'll pull through debris, etc. a lot easier with less snags and catch less grass and other junk to actually make it work better. The fourth design that they've incorporated into this jig is actually the bait keeper system, which this little bend in the hook right here and this real sharp point that's right here on the bottom of the jig work together to keep your tails in place and where you want them to be when you're fishing for walleyes. And what I want to do here now is just show you one of the ways that I rig my jig with a tail. I'm actually using the Berkeley Gulp. This is a 3-inch Gulp minnow. It's one of my favorite baits. I catch a lot of walleyes with this. So what you do is you take your jig, and instead of first of all running the barb of the hook right up the nose of the tail like you normally would with most jigs, you actually start back about about 1/8 of an inch actually from the nose, and insert the point of the hook, and when you go into the tail about as far as the hook gap is, in this case it's a little better than 3/8 of an inch, and then you bring the point of the hook out, right out the back of the tail, so it looks about like this, where this right here is the hook barb, and there's my shank, and you'll see that distance is about the same. Go ahead and push the tail up the jig. You'll notice that when I get to that sharp point I can't push it all the way on, so what I do is I turn the tail sideways and I push it past that sharp little point. And once I get it past that sharp little point right here, then I actually twist it back so that that bottom edge of my tail is actually caught and right under that sharp little point right here, so that helps keep that tail in place. So it makes the tail very, very durable, very solid. It basically it's really hard for that to come off. It works really, really well, and what you end up with is a system that looks a lot like this. Fishes really, really well, very durable, catches a lot of fish. It's my absolute favorite way of catching walleyes and my favorite jig to do so right there. Thanks.